Good morning, Larry. How are you this morning?
I'm good. How are you, Cyndy?
So thanks for taking some time and talking to me about work-life balance. I know you've been, a consultant for many years and worked in other businesses. What have you found that are tips or tools, things that you implement that help you with work-life balance?
So, just to back that up a minute, um, when we give professional advice to people under stress, what I've learned is that there are always going to be challenges, and they're unpredictable. And we all find little ways to create some balance in our lives. When you first asked me this question, I thought about a few of the others.
Mm-hmm.
But I realized that there is something I read some time ago, just a little book called The Four Agreements, and it's based upon ancient Toltec wisdom, not religion, just wisdom. I have increasingly gone to those rules. They're not always easy to apply, but they enable me to balance whatever needs to happen in my personal life with interacting with clients under stress. And they're mostly under stress. The students are under stress, the parents are under stress.
Mm-hmm. They are, absolutely.
Would you, have you become familiar with those things ever, the four agreements?
I have not, so
I
tell
bet
us
you'll
more
find
about
them,
that.
I bet you'll find them interesting, Cyndy. I can't believe we've never spoken about this. Okay, the first one is entitled Be Impeccable with Your Word. And by impeccable, what is meant is to be accurate, extremely accurate. This is a lot easier to do in writing than it is in speech because we get carried away from time to time. But I think it's also most fraught when we're writing. If we're not really accurate in what we're answering or what we're questioning, we can create a problem for ourselves in our interaction with people, especially people under stress, once again. So I've become increasingly careful. And with email being what it is these days, we all know that it's only too easy to send that email off quickly.
Mm-hmm.
I've tried to draw back from what I write and think about it again and try to read it with a fresh mind, much as we do with students, where we try to read their stuff with a fresh mind. We have to do it to ourselves. So that's number one. And number one and number two are probably the most accessible. The number two rule is don't take anything personally. There have been a few times in the years I've been doing this where I thought my relationship with a client was completely destroyed based upon some message I got, more often in writing, sometimes verbally. But then I have to think about this rule and this principle. The subpart A of this rule, as it's written, as it's summarized, is nothing others do is because of you.
Mm-hmm.
When someone is really upset, it's rarely because of something we have done. If we've done our job right and we haven't completely done something erroneous, it's not because of us. It's because they're living in a difficult time. They're wondering if, for instance, a student who has repeatedly failed is going to fail again at the rate of $65,000 a year. And they want to make that offer to that child, but they're also concerned, and it's a reasonable concern. Or recently I had an exchange with a family, and the young man I'm working with is extremely stressed all the time, and he has a lot of anxiety. And I was talking about his anxiety and the need to spend a lot of time with him. And then Dad finally was very direct with me, and he sort of followed this rule of being impeccable with his word. And he said, but you have to do something to deal with my anxiety about the process. I could have recoiled and thought this is about the student. It's not entirely about the student. The dad is anxious about this young man who's had his own problems being able to succeed in the rather complex process of applying to colleges. So that's, number two is, first one is be impeccable with your word, care in speaking, even more so in writing because it's harder to do in speaking. Don't take anything personally. Things don't happen because of us. We are not that influential. They happen because of what's going on in other people's lives. The third one is one we've heard a lot. Don't make assumptions.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody's heard that, and everybody does it. Anyway, it makes assumptions. So, I think of the other two first. Be impeccable with your word. Don't take anything personally. I think of don't make assumptions third, because it's very easy to get in your head. Not always so easy to do. When a stressed family contacts us and is worried about the quality of the list, whether it has enough aspiration in it or whether it has enough ease in it so the student is likely to be accepted, maybe get some merit aid, we shouldn't make any assumptions about what they're thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Be very clear in our reading. So I think of the don't make assumptions as being more receptive. That is, that's the way we have to deal with what's coming our way. And I think of be impeccable with your word as being more expressive. That's the way we have to speak to people and the way we have to write to people. So those three, they're accessible. I have to look at, I have the sheet up here alongside my camera right now. I have one hanging in my office. Very easy to forget, as easy as they are to understand. Now, number 4 is kind of interesting. Always do your best. It's been the hardest one for me to really incorporate. I would expect, Cyndy, that you would be like me in this. We've known each other for quite some time now. Always do your best does not mean always be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, even though we criticize perfectionism in others, because we see it in students who can't get stuff done, we do the same thing. Always do your best. That means don't underwork the situation. Don't ignore what you know to be, for instance, an unreliable data point or an unconvincing data point. And on the other hand, when the work is done, don't always rethink it. Provide it and feel comfortable with it. Not necessarily confident, not necessarily perfect, but comfortable. Because if you have an open relationship with the student and possibly with the parents, and I have a tendency to do a lot less with the parents than the student, then if you weren't quite right or you weren't quite complete, you'll get your answer. And once again, you'll have an opportunity to do your best. So the way I'm working with always do your best as rule number 4 is to not do too little or too poorly and to not set an unattainable standard. I cannot tell a family where that child should go to school in April of their senior year if one school satisfies their need for external prestige and another is so much cheaper because of the merit aid, which means that usually it means it has far less prestige. Doesn't mean quality, but less prestige, less external recognition. I can't resolve that problem. And in doing my best at that point, rather than drive myself crazy, I leave that family in equipoise, in balance, and I say, this is the choice that you've developed along with my help. You have this and you have this, and both are fair choices, and you're going to have to do it. I can't be perfect there. I can't do the outcome for the family. So I think always do your best includes this boundary issue. My best is to give you all the information I can for you to make a decision. And at that point, I'm going to leave you with a decision. If you need more in order to make your decision, if it's sensible, yes. But if a family wants to know if they've been looking at, say, average SAT scores, which we know average doesn't mean much, but let's say they were looking at average SAT scores and they say, but this school has 10 points higher on its average SAT score, you and I know that that is a meaningless difference, completely meaningless. And I am not going to solve that problem for them.
Right.
I'm going to tell them there's another way to make that decision. So that's the way it works for me. I've been doing this for years, Cyndy, trying to use these 4 agreements. They require sharpening all the time, these tools. Be impeccable with my word if I can be. The best I can do to put things clearly and as is simply, in some instances, don't take anything personally. That is that which I receive, I should not assume is because I have influenced the world in some remarkable way. It's because people have to live in their own world. Don't make assumptions. We all hear that all the time, and we make assumptions nonetheless. So I think sometimes it's better to identify our assumptions and then back off from them.
Mm-hmm.
Always do your best, which is the most confusing of all of them, I think. But it's effective. It's important, and it's a boundary issue that enables us to have dinner with our family and sleep at night. How did I do, Cyndy? Have I explained what I do?
You have. So how do you've mentioned how you apply these 4 principles, and thanks for listing them out, and I will look up a link, or if you have a link, we'll share that.
I'll send you a printout of a summary. It's a 4-color summary. It's kind of nice. I'll send it to you a little later today.
And then I can post that and make that available. That would be great. So how does applying these principles help you balance your life between work and your personal life?
It decreases my rumination. As you know, and maybe some of the people who watch this video will not know, I work with my wife. So balancing work and life has been a trick since we started working together full time. Mm-hmm. So we've had to, do some things. I was first thinking about these kinds of issues, separating dinner and saying that I don't want to talk about business now, and having some regular meetings so that there was a forum, so we didn't feel desperate, all those things. But they're less effective in the end. Those are just sort of techniques. But in changing my own mind, in being able to, read a silly book or a magazine, or take 45 minutes before going to sleep to chill, or maybe not always reading my emails first thing in the morning, these are more effective. These get me there. That's where I want to be. I want to every once in a while disconnect. But if I know I've been really careful with what I said to the client, if I know that I haven't taken their communications personally, which has saved me a lot of clients, if I know I'm recognizing, identifying my assumptions, and then trying to dispel them, and that I'm doing the best I can. If I haven't, I have to admit it. Well, then when dinner time comes, I'm fine. If I can feel that, I can sit down to dinner, I can cook, or I can eat what Holly's cooked, and I can do that. When I get up in the morning, I know that the day before I did fine, and today I'm going to do fine. And if I want to sit on the porch because the weather's nice and have my coffee on the porch, I can do that. So the most direct answer to your question when you first posed it to me, Cyndy, was sort of techniques, but actually these philosophies enable those techniques.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
It's not faith. It's not anything like that. It's more, I think, philosophy than faith.
It's a frame of mind and an approach. And if you apply that to everything you do, it works not only in your work life, but it also works in your personal life as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, people are having good and bad times in their personal lives too.
Definitely.
They don't always come out and tell you everything. And if they did, you wouldn't necessarily be able to react to it well. But, it's our job to remember that.
It is. It is. Larry, thank you so much. I appreciate your time, and hope that you have a very nice day today and all the things that you have planned. And I
have a few interesting things planned. I have some meetings and a soccer club, and they're kind of fun for a Friday, and a nice movie in the early evening. So it's always a pleasure to talk to you, my friend. And I hope that this conversation leads to some benefit for other folks, for members of our association and members of our profession.
I do too. Thank you very much.
Okay. Take care, Cyndy.